So let's get going.
Okay.
So greetings and merry meet. Let's talk about how to succeed with a big, hairy, audacious goal. You know, the one that's just this side of impossible. It's exciting and a little bit scary. Our LeadUP guest conquered her B-HAG of writing 20 books in 1 year and wrote one about how you can accomplish a similar goal that you might set for yourself. So I'm Dr. Kathryn Bingham, founder of LeadUP, a veteran and woman-owned small business that serves leaders and professionals who seek success with serenity. Right? Don't want to sacrifice that piece. So we help them reinvent, redesign, pivot, and change their life, change their work, change the world. But I'm also the author of Driving Pink. Today, our guest is Talia Beckett. Welcome, author of several series and mom of 2 humans, who has also written under the name of Jess, is it Mountfield?
Yes,
Okay.
Mountfield.
Awesome. And she writes across several genres, including fantasy with dragons. Anyone who's watched any prior interview with me knows I'm a dragon girl. And for some authors, that would be enough. But in 2020, Talia decided she'd write 20 books, including How to Write Lots and Get Shit Done, The Art of Not Being a Flake. So again, welcome.
Thank you. It's very good to be here.
Awesome. So we started with this idea of a supremely challenging goal. Can you tell us a little bit about the journey that led you to this idea of writing 20 books in 2020?
It was kind of a combination of things. I'd always read that if you are creative in any field, that doing it every day was a good thing. And you got rusty if you didn't do it every day. And then I had 2 small children and my life felt like it fell apart. And I was a bit like, I want to find me again. So when my youngest was about 9 months old and I just got him beginning to sleep through some nights, not always, but, you know, just getting that occasional breathing room, I was like, I'm ready to find me again and find my voice again. And it was about this time 4 years ago, 2019. And I was like, well, I've got all these books I've half finished, or I've got these books I've really wanted to write. And I was just like, I'm just going to go for it and see what happens and kind of get myself out of this funk that I'd gotten into. And I think in retrospect, I had postnatal depression after the second one, and I didn't really get it diagnosed, but I kind of wrote my way out of it. And I was just like, I need this. I need something that's just mine. And I was just like, well, I'd read that Enid Blyton had written 600 something books with small children, and Charles Dickens wrote 2 million words a day for over a decade, not 2 million words a day, 2 million words a year for over a decade. And I was like, I want my version of that. So I decided
that legacy,
I was gonna,
right? Awesome.
Yeah. I was like, if they can do it, so can I.
I think that's right. That's right. And I love challenging goals. You know, so then 2020 begins, right? And the world is in the throes of the pandemic. And you stepped forward with this awesome challenge for yourself. What did it feel like once you got started?
It was harder than I thought it was going to be in some ways, but then easier in others because people rallied around me. Other people wanted to see me succeed at it. So I found there was more time to write than I was expecting. I bribed my children. I told them that if the books took off, I would take them to Disneyland with the money they made. We're taking them to Disneyland this August, so they got their promise.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, in How to Write Lots, and you know what? You have the paperback.
Yeah,
I have it. Can you hold that up so people can see the cover?
Oh, hold on. I've disappeared.
It disappeared. There we go. Right there.
There we go.
Hold and stop.
It's not quite.
So it's How to Write Lots and Get Shit Done.
There we go.
And the art of
it keeps
being a flake. You're fine. That's good enough. People can always scroll back a little bit.
Yeah.
And we're going to put the link in the video description, so that's okay too. In that book, you describe some of the ways that you start a writing session, how you stay on pace, and keeping accountable. Can you share a bit about your approach to each of these?
Well, I started the little ritual again from the learning about other creatives that wrote or created every single day, and talking about the fact that some of them would have a very strict process where they would be like, they've got to do a certain things in a certain order to trigger the brain. And I bought myself a little armchair in a charity shop that I was like, that looks like the perfect writing chair. And I would only use that chair to write. And I've upgraded now to like a hanging basket chair, but it's the same principle. I go through the same process to be like, okay, it's writing time now. And it's kind of like driving to an office, but I don't have the office somewhere else. I have it at home. So that was kind of the logic behind that one. And I still try to stick to it, to this day. I'm not always as rigorous, but it doesn't have to be once you've got it going. It's kind of like any part of that process then triggers the brain. So that just makes starting easier, because it's so easy to procrastinate on a bad day.
Yes.
But that kind of gets me going. And then doing it every day. I know that's not something that works for everybody, but it very much works for me. If I'm in the flow thinking about the stories I've written some recently, I stop in the middle of a sentence so that I can pick up a sentence right where I left it, so that I don't have any of the blank page fear or anything like that, because it's still very fresh. And then just the sprints, the keeping myself focused and making myself do it for a set length of time. I actually, these days, I now stream it online live. A lot of
I love
writing.
that. So you were talking about being on pace and how you're managing that.
Yeah. So a lot of it keeping the accountability. I'm a raging extrovert, so being alone to work day after day is something I don't enjoy. So having someone to sprint with, or sprinting live in front of people, it's very much more, it brings other people into the process. It's like being in offices. I just had to replicate that office structure as much as possible.
I like that. And I like the accountability piece, right? It's so important to people to, it doesn't matter whether it's our writing or if we're wanting to take on change in life and work, that if we hold ourselves accountable, we find I'm a coach, but I use coaches to keep myself accountable for certain things that I want to do or learn, or a particular project. And it's helpful because there's somebody there, like you said, that audience that is watching to make sure that we move forward and do the things we say we're going to do.
Okay.
One of the things that I really like in your book, How to Write Lots, is that you have a lot of really practical tools that you suggest. And for our listeners, How to Write Lots is just chock full of specific ideas and tools that Talia has tried. And the takeaway for me is that whatever path we're on, there's likely to be an app for that, right?
Yeah.
And we can experiment to find what really works for us on our own journey. So, was there any suggestions? If we have some writers who are listening today, what are some of the things that have been really helpful for you in whether it's the process, whether it's the accountability? And not everything works for everybody, but what are some of the ideas that you've tried?
Okay. The biggest one that has worked for me from day one is For the Words, the website. I'm very much a gamer, and I very much like that reward carrot kind of person. So For the Words gamifies it, and you have all these monsters and quests and timers on these monsters, and you have to write to beat these monsters. And you can cheat, you could copy and paste, but it's not the same as that live adrenaline. I'm beating my monsters. So for me, that was the thing that got me okay, I'm just going to do a bit more. I'm just going to do a bit more. And that upped how much I could do and how fast. And then it just happened to have a streak feature that keeps track of how many days in a row you've done. And I'm up to 2,100 and something days on the website so
I
far.
love that.
So it's kept
All
me
of the
going.
things that have those streaks, whether it's my exercise
Yeah.
apps, or whether it's the Calm app, or, all of them, when they have those streaks, it tells us. And, for some people, if you skip a day, the world isn't going to end, or you skip 2 days. But there is a psychological and a neurological shift that happens when you just start letting it go, that it takes a lot more effort to get back started again. So it's
It can
smart
do, yeah.
to do that. Now you write in a mix of genres. So can you highlight a
Yeah.
few of those for our listeners?
My favorite is very much urban fantasy. It's kind of the mix of all of my different skills into one, because I started in historical, so there's that element of the real world, but a bit of
Mhm.
research. And then I moved into sci-fi. And with urban fantasy, you can bring fantastical into the real world,
Mhm.
but then you can throw in some sci-fi elements that mix magic and science, and then you can throw in some of that research of the places that make them feel real. So it kind of brings all that together, but then there's also a good mix of action and occasionally a romance, there's some angst from the characters, that kind of thing. So it kind of brings all of my genres together. So that's where I do most of my writing at the moment.
Yeah, I love that. So for some of our folks who maybe fantasy isn't your thing, a pure play world builder, like Katie Cross built Alcara, and you have that world. It is what it is, and it's not the same as, think about Rowling's Harry Potter, where you have the real world, all of the mundane and the muggles, and the magical world is built on top. And so what you're talking about with this urban fantasy is, it is the real world, but there are existing magic and run rules and creatures that are different, and they live amongst us and exist, and the interplay comes. And there's a lot, for example, in the series that I read, and I talked about, maybe it was before we were recording, but is it Dragons of Shadow and Light, or Shadow and
Shadow and
Air?
Yeah. Yeah.
So so what I loved about that is, at first in the storyline, these were very separate. All of us who are human had no idea that the
Yeah.
magical world existed. And then it begins to merge, which I find a really interesting way of bringing. So it's the urban fantasy, but it didn't start out being something that the folks in the real world were aware of. So there's all kinds of ways to take the storyline, and you have a lot of freedom in writing there. Um, what does it feel like, or when you have this mix of projects? Because when you talk about in How to Write Lots, you describe that you had multiple projects going at the same time in different
Yes.
stages. So
Yes.
how does that support staying motivated and encourage you to achieve that goal that you had?
Well, I'm very much a writer that needs to think about an idea quite a lot before I can write it. So having projects in multiple stages, having several I'm writing at the same time, means that if my brain gets stuck on one, I can leave it be and I can switch lane, essentially switch track, and still keep producing,
Mhm.
but and not get bogged down by one idea getting a bit stuck. And it just gives the brain time to work in the background, because often I'll find, even if if I'm in the middle of a writing sprint and I get a bit stuck, and I get to the end of the sprint and I'm like, I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen next. Even just doing one sprint on another book, that can sometimes be enough that I come back to it and I go, okay, I know what I'm doing now.
Mhm.
And sometimes it takes days, weeks, months, especially when it comes to plotting a brand new series. I will mull that over often for a few months and just keep coming back to it. And that's where I often use, actually, I say use, I have a couple of friends and my partner that I will often talk to about my ideas in the very early stages, where I'm like, I'm thinking about this. And they don't often give me that much feedback, but it's a way I can get my thoughts out and I can test it, feel it, see where it's going, and start letting it build kind of on its own. So I'm always juggling somewhere between 5 and 10 different projects at one stage or another, simply so that I can let them sit in my brain as long as they need to before I go, okay, now I'm working on this, or now I need to push it then to the next stage. And it just makes it a little less stressful, because I always feel productive, because it doesn't matter what I'm working on, one of them I can push forward. Exactly. And then I feel satisfied. You get that satisfaction of I've made progress.
And you can kill more monsters.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. I think about that as you're describing it. I call it often a mental offset. And I think one of the best descriptions I have when I try to explain this to people is, I was working on a statistical modeling project with a group of people. And at the same time, a colleague was teaching me some Hebrew words and letters. And it was okay, this is the math and this is the language arts. And it allowed my brain to just do things in the background. And then when I went back to the modeling, I was like, yeah, got it. Right. And so there are things that we can do as we work on our projects that give our brain a break in one area that allows us to come back to another one. Let's go back to your world building for a minute. What inspirations do you draw on for your world building?
It's a combination. I mean, I feel like I draw inspiration from everywhere. I watch a lot of TV if I get the chance. I read a lot of books. I like to go out and talk to people. One of the things that's great about my partner and our kind of our life together is that, especially when it's the two of us and the tiny humans are at school or whatever, if we're out somewhere, he especially is very good at striking up a conversation with somebody. And we'll end up talking to random people that we meet wherever we go about their lives and their stories. So I get a little bit from that. I try not to obviously include anything that's embarrassing about anyone or anything like that, but so some of it comes from that, from just meeting ordinary people living lives, and no one's really completely ordinary. And it's finding that in everyday life. But also, I dream a lot. I'm always like waking up in the morning, you'll never guess what I dreamed about last night. It's quite a common thing for me to say. And I've always loved reading. So, and all sorts of genres as well. There's so many bookcases in this house full of books for all different ages that it's kind of a bit crazy at times.
I like that. Talia, I work with people who want to find success on their own terms. What does that look like for you?
Hours whenever I wish for them, to be honest. I didn't get along very well with the 9-to-5 office job. Part of it was my health. I have a lot of different health problems. I've got scoliosis, so my spine isn't straight, so sitting for too long is difficult. I've got POTS, so I get dizzy, so I can't stand for too long. And the combination of all of these things means that I work really well in the winter. I don't work so well in the summer. And
yes.
I need flexible hours, especially with the tiny humans. So for me, it was that freedom of answering to anyone or having to do it at any specific set time. I get to work my hours. I get to work the hours I want to. And another great thing about being an author is you don't have to write this many words to be successful. You can do it with less and more marketing. So there are loads. It feels like there are so many ways to be successful as an author that you can tailor it to whatever your strengths are.
And how would you advise, and maybe not necessarily someone whose desire is to be an author, but if you're thinking about a leader or a professional or another mom of tiny humans, two humans in your case, who wants to live their dream, today and not someday, what would you say to them?
To just get started.
Mm,
Do it a little bit every day. Do something that makes you feel like you made progress, because that's the important thing, that you go to bed every night and you think, no matter how difficult your day was, you did something to get where you want to be, because that's actually all it is. It's just
mhm,
not giving up. And
absolutely.
just every day you wake up, you try again. It doesn't matter what happened the day before. And every night you go to bed and you're like, I made progress today. I fought hard today, no matter what the world throws at you.
I
Because
love
with
that.
tiny humans, it's so unpredictable.
It is. It is. Before we conclude our conversation, let's ask the audience a question. Now, if you wrote a book, folks, if you're watching our video today, about the biggest dream in your life, what would the title be? Now, you know what to do. You put it down into the comments below the video window, and I read each and every comment. I will respond. But while folks think about that and put their answer in the comments, Talia, anyone who listens to LeadUP Conversations knows that I help embrace people embrace the idea of pivots, whether it's small changes, the idea that you just shared, start small, do something every day, or big activities that lead to significant outcomes. So if we think about pivots, that's also about what's next. What's next for you in your list of things that you're looking to do in your work or in your life?
I'm actually hoping to make a big shared universe. I've started on it at the moment. The newest series, the Dragon Apparent series, is the first
Mhm.
series in the universe, and there's going to be multiple series. I've started working on the second series, but I'm also hoping to bring in other authors and make an entirely
Nice.
massive universe full of different dragons and stuff like that, because I like working with people. So I want to bring in more people that I can help. The long term, I'm hoping it will take me to my major end goal, which is setting up essentially a charity that helps all creatives. I'm hoping to set up a retreat, and sponsor people and do that until I die, kind of thing. Live in a house where people come and live with me for a while, or stay with me for a week, or whatever it takes, and sponsor other creatives, essentially.
I love that. And you know what? That is so important, that sometimes folks who are creatives get that little bit of time away, because as you know, we were just talking about, having our kids, it's unpredictable, things happen in life. And so that space to create is just it's a real gift. So great thinking. I like that. Do you have any other final thoughts before we close out?
Oh, I don't know where to go with that. Just don't give up. To anyone that wants to do anything, just don't give up, because you haven't failed until you give up.
Mm-hmm.
You don't actually fail. You get knocked down. You have to pick yourself up sometimes, but you don't actually fail until you stop trying.
I like that. And then I'm going to ask you this, just because having read the book, what are those chocolate crunchies?
Oh, I wish I had one. I don't have one in the house at the moment. It's a honeycomb type center with Cadbury's Dairy Milk, which is a very famous chocolate in the UK, wrapped around it.
Okay.
And so yeah, it's this kind of caramelly, honeycomb, sugary
Ooh,
goodness
yum.
wrapped in
So,
chocolate.
so the reason I bring that up, folks, as we're getting ready to close out, I just wanted to ask that because it's in
It's in the
Talia's
book.
book as a reward for herself. Periodically, she'd have chocolate crunchies, and I'm like, what the heck is a chocolate crunchy? I don't necessarily have that here, so I thought everybody might be interested in knowing what a chocolate crunchy is. So thank you so much for your time. And I want to thank everyone
Thank you for having me.
who's taken that time, love it, to listen to our conversation. Please subscribe to the channel so that you know when the next awesome convo hits the feed, as well as gives you opportunities to learn and grow from the stories of other people, and live for today, not someday. We will be adding Talia's author links to the video description. That way you get access to all of the books in her series. You can see them all from those author pages. I will also include her Instagram and Facebook links as well. And with one more thank you, I just want to encourage you to go forth and do great things. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you.